We can browse Excel functions by clicking on the FX icon. There are several ways to find the functions we need. In the Search for a Function window, we can enter the name of the function if we know it, or type in one or more keywords that describe what the function does. We can also choose the category which the function might be in, for example, financial or mathematical. By clicking on the name of the function in the Select Function window, you can see its description. In many cases, the description is enough to understand what the function is used for. Let's choose Sum as the first example. After selecting it, the function arguments window is displayed. After entering a cell range into the first window, the current function result, if it's possible to calculate it, is displayed below the function description. Here you can see the description of the argument that can be entered in the number 1 field, and what the function will do with it. In this lesson, I present the descriptions of frequently used functions with examples taken from real-life experiences in various corporations. The list of functions obviously doesn't cover all the functions available in Excel, but as I mentioned earlier, for many functions it's possible to understand how they work solely from the descriptions given by Excel. Functions for more advanced users are explained in the lesson's Advanced Functions, Functions for Experts, and an array of functions and formulas. Sum is probably the most commonly used Excel function, and it's the simplest to use too. It can be inputted in several ways. The fastest is to activate the cell under the range which we want to add up and use the keyboard shortcut Alt equals. Excel will try to figure out the range of cells that we want to add together. If the range is incorrect, edit it by dragging the corner of the suggested range. This process is shown in detail in my first formulas lesson. Many people prefer to select the range and click the Sum icon from the Home tab. The Sum icon is also available in the Formulas tab and many other places. Warning: even with a simple function like this, many Excel users make mistakes, the most common being accepting Excel's suggested range without checking it. Excel typically suggests the wrong range in 2 cases. When one of the pieces of data is missing, in which case Excel stops at the first empty cell, or if there is a number in the column header, like a year. The average function calculates the average of numbers or ranges. All functions can also be entered by typing equals and starting to type the function's name. After the first letter, Excel proposes the function starting with this letter, and to select one of them, double-click on its name. After selecting the range, we don't have to put a closed bracket. We can immediately confirm the function by hitting Enter. Warning: this function, like all other Excel functions, treats an empty cell or text differently to 0. In this example, the average is calculated 3 times for the same data, but the results are different. In the first table, the average is calculated by only using 6 elements of the table. If we want to calculate the average sales per product for all 7 products, we need to enter a 0 into the empty cell. Cells containing text are also ignored in calculations. With this function, you can enter cell addresses separately, or enter the entire range. The average is also available on the status bar. More information about it can be found in my status bar lesson. To calculate the weighted average, the best way is to use the SumProducts function, and to calculate the geometric mean, it's best to use the geomean function. If function. In this example, in column E, we need to see the change in sales for a list of products. Because some products weren't sold in 2018, the percentage formula results in the divide by 0 error message, which you have to admit doesn't look professional. It's much better for the function to show a simple dashed line in these cases. I suggest deleting this formula and activating cell E4. Select the function icon. In the search function window, enter if and confirm by hitting enter. After selecting the if function and pressing OK, the function arguments window appears. In the logical test window, we'll enter C4 more than 0, which means if the sales in 2018 was greater than 0, then something will happen. In the value if true box, enter the percentage change formula, which will only be calculated if the sales in 2018 were greater than 0. In the value if false window, type in a dashed line, which will be displayed when C4 more than 0 isn't true, and it's not possible to calculate the percentage increase. Confirm the formula by pressing OK, then copy it from cell E4 into the following cells. After copying the formula into the entire column, we can see that 3 of the products now display a dashed line. Round. In Excel, there are many functions that can be used for rounding. The round function is the most common. It has 2 arguments, the number that we want to round, in most cases that's the cell reference, and the number of digits to round to, or the cell reference. In this example, the number 1.234567889 is rounded to 0 decimal places. Now we'll copy the formula down. The numbers from 1 to 4 are rounded down, and the numbers from 5 to 9 are rounded up, which is easy to see by reviewing the results in this example. If the number of digits is negative, the number will be rounded to hundreds, thousands, etc. Max-min. The min function selects the smallest number, and the max function selects the largest number from a chosen range or ranges. We'll use these 2 functions to find the runners with the best and worst times. Cells containing text and empty cells will be ignored. In this example, cell C9 is empty, so its value is 0, but cell C13 was selected as the smallest value. Counter. The counter function calculates the number of cells that are not empty. We'll use this function in row 15. It counts how many customers were granted a rebate in each month. We'll also use it in column J to calculate the number of months where the rebate was granted to each customer. In cell J15, we have to use the sum to show the number of discounts for all the customers in all the months. The today function shows today's data. It's mainly used in forms and in logistics, for example, to calculate how many days have passed since the delivery date. This function has no arguments. We'll type in today minus the delivery date in cell C3. Its result depends on the date and time that is set on your computer. The logic functions, OR and AND. Logic functions are rarely used alone. They are useful in combination with other functions. You can find out more about these so-called nested functions later on in this lesson. The AND function gives us the logic values true or false. True if all conditions are met, and false if they are not. In this example, in column F, we need to find the months with sales values that were below 50 from all the branches. Input equals AND, open brackets, C4 less than 50, comma, D4 less than 50, comma, E4 less than 50, close brackets. 2 months were found to be true. OR. The OR function returns logical values, true or false. True if at least one of the conditions is met, and if none of them are true, false. In column G, using the OR function, we'll check to see whether the sales in any of the branches exceeded 100 in any of the months. We'll input the function equals OR, open brackets, C4 more than 100, comma, D4 more than 100, comma, E4 more than 100, close brackets. The result is that 4 months meet the assumptions. Nested functions. Often there's a need to use a few functions in combination. These are called nested functions. In this example, we'll work out who out of the sales representatives should receive a bonus for the first quarter. The rule is simple. All representatives whose sales exceeded the previous year in every month should receive a bonus. Let's start from cell G4 and input equals min and the range of C4 to E4. Then copy the function down. With this function, we know that the lowest change versus the previous year for each representative. In cell F4, input the following function. If the lowest change was above 0, put bonus in the cell, otherwise leave it empty, which in Excel is written as an empty pair of quotation marks. Our task is complete, but let's try to do it using just 1, not 2 cells for each person. In cell G4, select the formula leaving out the equals sign. Copy the selected formula using Ctrl+C, and then leave the cell by pressing the escape key. Now go to cell F4 and select the address G4 and paste the previously copied formula into its place. The address will be automatically deleted. We now have a nested function. The functions in column G are no longer needed. After copying the formula into the following lines and deleting column G, we have a final solution. Advanced Excel users input nested functions without putting them in multiple cells first. But the method I've just explained is useful for beginners and allows you to understand the logic of nested functions. Sum product. We've got the sales values and percentage margins for 4 countries, and we've already calculated the total sales. Now we need to calculate the percentage margin for the sum of these countries. Of course, the average function wouldn't give us the right result, due to the fact that the sales in these countries are different sizes, and these countries influence the overall margin differently. So we need to calculate a weighted average. We could use a long formula that multiplies the sales from each country by the margin for that country, then divide the sum of them by the sum of the sales. This formula is shown in cell I4. But using sum product is much faster. Additionally, it reduces the risk of error, and if you add another country, you don't need to change the formula. Let's activate cell G4 and choose the sum product function. Array 1 are the margins, ranging from cell C4 to cell F4. Array 2 are the sales, ranging from cell C5 to cell F5. This function multiplies elements of the first array by elements of the second array, then all the results are summarized. To get a weighted average, at the end of the formula we need to add the division by the sum of the sales in cell G5. The result is 32%, the same as we obtained using the formula in cell I4, indicating that both formulas give us a correct result. Finally, let's add a column between Poland and Russia and enter some new values into it. The weighted average margin in cell H4 is updated after every change, but the formula entered manually in cell J4 needs correcting. Search and mid. In this example, we have a fragment of the price survey, which a company received from a research agency. Unfortunately, the product sizes are part of the name, which makes it difficult to compare products' prices. There are several thousand products on the list, which is why we decided to use text functions to extract the capacity. We're going to use 2 text functions, search and mid. First we input the search function. We are looking for ML in cell B4, and you can ignore the last window. Then copy the formula down. The search function returns the number of the character, so we know where the value of the capacity starts. Now activate cell C4 and input a mid function. We are going to cut the text from cell B4 from the 14th character. ML begins, and the capacity starts 3 characters before ML. We input H4-3, and we need to cut out 3 of the characters. Finally, copy the search function from cell H4 and put it in the mid function instead of the cell H4 reference. As you gain experience, you will input one function into another without putting too many cells before it. The result of these functions I just described is not a number, but text, and in the case of the products with a capacity below 100 milliliters, this starts with a space. In order to be able to perform mathematical operations on the capacities, convert the entirety of column C into values. Copy and paste as values. Then replace the space character with nothing. Input 1 in any cell, copy it, and multiply it by all of the text values, which you want to be recognized by Excel as numbers. Now Excel treats them as values. On the status bar, they have been added. If error. This function is usually used to prevent errors in results. In this example, we'll summarize the values from 4 tables. It's expected that there are errors in some of them, and in case of errors, we want to replace them with a 0. Add the following formula. As a result, only the cells without errors are summarized. Subtotal. In this example, I'll show you a comparison of the sum and subtotal functions and how to use a combination of both of them. In column C, I'll use the sum function for regions and also for the total. In this case, a wrong result has been calculated because the function in cell C26 doesn't just summarize the sales for the customers, but also for the totals of the regions. The correct formula in this case should only summarize the regions with a simple adding formula. The appropriate formula is in cell C27. In column D, you can see the use of the subtotal function. both in the sums of the regions and the total. Using this function gives us confidence that the sums of the regions are skipped, and the result is correct. In column E, you can also see the subtotal function, but this time it ignores the hidden rows. Because row 4 is hidden, the result isn't correct. In the last example, you can see that the subtotal function only ignores other subtotals, but not sum functions. The result is also incorrect. Look at the following function. In function syntax, the first digit is the function type. The number 9 or 109 is the sum, but there are also other possibilities that are presented in this table. The second argument is the range to be summarized. ABS. ABS is a function used in mathematics. It's also called an absolute value or modulus. This function has one argument, which can only be a number or address or other function that's result is a number. This function for positive numbers doesn't change the value, but for negative numbers it changes them to positive. For example, the ABS of 5 is 5, and the ABS of minus 5 is also 5. It's one of many functions in Excel that can be easily replaced using simple mathematical symbols, in this case exponentiation. First, the number should be raised, for example, to the power of 2, and then the result should be square rooted, to the same degree as the power. 5 squared, square rooted is 5, minus 5 squared, square rooted is 5. Rand. The rand function draws a value from 0 to 1. Because it chooses a value every time you change something in the worksheet, it's best to replace the function with a value immediately, otherwise this function could significantly slow down your computer. Often, the result of this function is multiplied or divided to get the proper magnitude of the numbers. For example, rand times 1000, or half plus rand divided by 10. The function is often used to create data that looks realistic, and most of the data in this course was created using this function. Sometimes in discussions in international corporations, some people suggest using this function as a possible source of data, which they receive from other departments, countries, or business partners. You can find out more about Excel functions in the lessons Advanced Functions, Functions for Experts, and Array Functions and Formulas. This was lesson number 13 of the Excel for Beginners course. The next lesson is Groups and Auto Outline. I recommend you watch all the lessons from the Excel for Beginners and Advanced Excel courses, and then check your skills by doing the Excel job interview tests, which are at the end of the Advanced Excel course.